Ladies and gentlemen, up next, finish the wall, build the dome. Please welcome former senior advisor to President Trump and founder of America First Legal, Stephen Miller. From Texas, Congressman Wesley Hunt. From Ohio, Attorney General Dave Yost. And your moderator, host of Eric Bolling the Balance on Newsmax, Eric Bolling.
Hey, thank you. You guys. How are you? How's everyone? Hey, Dave, how are you? Welcome to CPAC. We'll get right into it right away because these are three of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life, especially that one right over. We got a great topic, border security, and we were just chatting. What haven't you heard about the border? And this is something that I talked to Stephen about. It's very, very concerning to me. We know we have the Swiss cheese border. We know it's a problem. We know there are anywhere between 12 and 20 million illegals in the country already. And Stephen said, where are we going to start? And I'll start with you, Stephen. The concern is the Swiss cheese border. Now municipalities around the country are talking about allowing illegals the right to vote. Dangerous.
Well, I think this is the next great threat to our sovereignty, buried within this border nightmare we've been living through for 2 years. And everyone in this room, of course, is familiar, as Eric said, with the fact that we're probably now well over 20 million illegal aliens in this country. And who really even knows how many have come in the last 2 years? I could cite you the numbers about border statistics, but how many millions more have gone in completely unknown, undetected? And so now you see leftists moving to let illegal aliens vote. So in Washington, D.C., as I think you all know, they passed a law saying illegal aliens can vote in our nation's capital city. So they can pass laws using illegal aliens that will determine the crime, the public safety, the education policy in our nation's capital. And Joe Biden has said that he will not veto the House's effort to stop that law. So that's going to go into effect unless something miraculous happens. And my fear and my prediction is that you're going to see one municipality after another in this country realize the extraordinary political power the left can seize by letting illegal aliens and non-citizens vote in city after city after city, creating a massive political constituency comprised entirely of illegal aliens. And we need a complete federal ban on non-citizens voting in all elections.
Amen. Absolutely. Congressman, your thoughts on that topic?
You know, I view this as more of an issue of national security. I'm a West Point guy. I'm a military guy, and we have seen enough fentanyl pour into our borders to kill every single American 5 times. That's astounding to me. We've lost 150,000 Americans in the last 2 years since Joe Biden has been our president. That's astounding to me. Americans are dying every single day because we have a porous border and because China is supplying the cartels with fentanyl, and we've lost enough Americans that would account for 3 times the number of soldiers that we lost during the Vietnam War. I'm going to tell y'all, we're already at war with the cartels and with China, by the way. They know exactly what they're doing. Thank you. They know exactly what we're doing, and as somebody that's down in Texas that sees this every single day, my concern is watching the border czar and this current president do absolutely nothing about it while this drug indiscriminately kills Americans. We've seen 50 people on the terrorist watch list that we know of enter our country. Now, I was at West Point when 9/11 hit. I remember it well. I devoted my life to serve this country to stop that from happening again. Thank you. And here we are back at square one. So I really appreciate the voices in this room right now and the people on this panel that understand that this is an issue of our sovereignty. It's the federal government's job to keep her citizens safe, and that's what I intend to do in the future here as a member of the United States Congress.
I don't know if you know this. I lost my only child, my son, to a fentanyl overdose in college, sophomore.
I am sorry to hear that.
Long story. I think most of you. This is my 7th speech appearance at CPAC, and we've done this in the past. But thank you for your concern about the fentanyl crisis that is existentially a threat to our younger people, especially. Attorney General, tell us, I want to continue on with the idea that once we allow illegals the right to vote, it's game over for conservatives in this country, is it not?
The thing is, illegals shouldn't be in the country. And so why are we even talking about voting? You know, Ohio was part of a coalition of states that challenged the Biden administration. This was so outrageous. In 2021, the Department of Homeland Security issued a guidance that basically repealed an act of Congress that required anybody that had gotten a final order to be deported within 90 days. And they just said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're talking about convicted felons in many cases. I don't know how we can expect foreigners to obey the law when the President of the United States doesn't obey the law.
Indeed, indeed. Stephen, how many would love to see the wall that the Trump administration started completed? Is a wall racist, Stephen? Is a wall racist?
The wall is the opposite of racist. You look at these border communities living in Texas who have screamed and shouted, begged and pleaded for some kind of border security. Who's living in these communities? Overwhelmingly, these are Hispanic Americans, Latinos, first, second, third generation, some quite a bit longer, who are living in these communities, who are having their hospitals destroyed, their schools destroyed, their public infrastructure destroyed. And of course, they're not safe in their own cities, because you mentioned it's a cartel war happening on our border. And every American citizen, this is something I talk about all the time, every American citizen has a civil right to be secure and safe in their own country and to have a completely sealed border. It is a violation of the civil rights of every single American that you have millions of illegal immigrants coming to this country, competing for your jobs, your health care, your public benefits, spots in your kids' local school, crowding the emergency rooms, and then on top of all of that, committing heinous crimes as we see time and time and time again. The most important thing that we can do in the next 2 years is support people like the congressman right here as they fight in the House of Representatives to shut down the border and stop this incredible violation of our sovereignty.
Yeah, and Congressman, let me just expand on that a little bit. As a television host, if you say that illegals come across the border and commit crimes at a higher rate, you are now racist and attempted to be canceled. But Congressman, it's actually true, isn't it?
I'll love to piggyback on that. I was actually in a judiciary hearing the other day, and a man from the left came to testify, and he said that if you call what's happening at our border an invasion, then you're racist. Now, I've been black for a long time. And I consider what's happening at our border an invasion, and I can assure you that I am not racist. But the left always behaves this way. That they have now become the boy who cried wolf, and everything that they talk about and everything that they do is racist. And what's funny about this conversation is the most racist thing that I have seen over the course of the past few years is the insinuation that black and brown people can't have an ID or can't get an ID to go vote. Voting in this country is actually very easy. It's a very low bar. And the reason why I call them racist is because they think so little of a group of people that attaining an ID or being a citizen of this country to vote for our leadership for the future is in some way impossible for black and brown people to be able to do. Now, that's why I am a conservative, because I don't prescribe to the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Well done, well done. Attorney General, where are we as a country, or as a state, as a country, in increasing our voting security by requiring an identification? Is it that much? Is it that hard, as Congressman West says?
Well, look, 80% of the people in America think that if you have to have an ID to buy beer or rent a car, it's not a stretch to say that you ought to have an ID for voting. Ohio just passed a law. You know what happened as soon as we passed the law? Common sense law requiring common sense security, including voter ID. Mark Elias sued us. And you know what? We're going to fight him, and we're going to win that case.
Good. Stephen, how many forms of ID do you need to show to get into the White House?
I mean,
by the way,
you have to tell your whole life story and have your...
It's a Democrat Biden the White House right now. I'm sure they didn't relax the entrance requirements.
By the time that a member of the public is admitted into the White House, they pretty much verified your entire biography, that of your family and everyone that you've met in your life. The fact that we don't ask people for an ID to vote in this country is criminal. We have no idea who's voting in this country. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. We do not have any method for verifying your identity for people who are voting in federal elections in almost all states because of an activist judiciary and activist lawsuits. In state after state after state of this country, we vote on the honor system. I want you to think about that. You show up and you say, this is my name and I'm a citizen, and they say, well, if you say so, then by all means, here's your vote, here's your absentee ballot, here's whatever you want. There's no verification whatsoever that you in fact live where you say you live, are who you say you are, or were a citizen of this country at the time that you voted. That's insane, and has to be a top priority for conservatives everywhere to have true integrity in our elections.
Now, Congressman, I know the communist country of California allows illegals to get driver's license if someone illegal presents at a voting booth. They'll be allowed to by showing a driver's license?
We absolutely have to fix that, but Gavin Newsom, we know how he is, so my guess is he won't do anything about it. Yeah. But to talk about just even how low this bar is, I have an 8-week little boy at my house right now, 8 weeks old. Thank you. Cute little guy. I love him to death. Do you know what he has already?
An ID.
A Social Security card.
Yes, right? Yeah.
It got mailed to my house. Yeah. That's how easy it is to get an ID in this country. And the only thing that the people in this room want, the only thing that we want, is for somebody to walk in and say, hey, I want to vote for this person, and here's my Social Security card, or here's my CHL. I'm from Texas, so I have my CHL, I have a driver's license, I have my Congressman ID. I have like 10 forms of ID currently in my wallet as we speak. And the reason why we have these things is because that's just what responsible adults and Americans do. Right. Why would we want irresponsible adults and Americans that can't meet that threshold to vote in our elections? It's pretty ridiculous. So what this panel, what we're trying to talk about here is personal responsibility and how do we as a country have free and fair elections when we know exactly who is voting in every single election, and also for you so that you know that your vote counted. That's the most important thing that we can have in this country. It's imperative for our democracy to keep that.
Attorney General, do you think a certain percentage of the total vote is delivered by illegals in America?
You know, this is interesting because there's all these studies that get thrown out by the left all the time that, you know, a tiny percentage, you know, well to the right of the decimal point. But I was a prosecutor, and one of the first things that they teach you as a prosecutor is the first element you have to determine is the identity of the person that committed the crime. You've all seen this on TV, right? Yeah, they ask the witness, do you see the man that assaulted you in the courtroom? That's him, right? That's the identity. How are you going to be able to tell the answer to your question if you don't have ID?
Stephen,
it's a serious question, folks.
You said yourself, you can't buy a six-pack of beer without an ID. You can't get into CPAC, can't get into the White House.
Can't rent a car either.
Can't rent a car, but you can make one of the most important decisions in this country without an ID.
You also can't check into a hotel anymore without an ID.
Yeah. So how do we fix it? We have a couple minutes for each. What's the solution? Is it unfixable or is it fixable still?
So, I mean, the solution is a few things. One, on this ID point, just to reiterate, we need to have a national drive as conservatives, And we have to ask the same of all of our politicians in state, local, and federal office to say that in every election, in every part of this country, there is going to be an ID requirement. And if judges are blocking it, then we need to have a national drive to get a judiciary, both at the state and federal level, because a lot of the stuff's also at the state level, that is going to uphold voter ID so that we can reclaim the integrity of our elections. And then in the meantime, to seal the border, the most important thing that we're going to do is there's going to be an appropriations fight coming up at the end of this fiscal year, around September. And we're going to need 218 rock-ribbed members of Congress, just like Congressman Hunt, that are going to say, we're not going to fund the Department of Homeland Security absent a complete requirement that every illegal alien who crosses that border gets shipped back where they came from. And that's it. And we're not taking it anymore.
Congressman.
I think it's up to us in this room to start to change the narrative of what it means to have an ID to be able to vote. Again, the left calls everyone racist, and in my house, growing up for me, it was an issue of personal responsibility. I'm a West Point grad, my brother's a West Point grad, my sister's a West Point grad.
Thank you for our freedom.
There's 60 years worth of military service just in my immediate family, and why do I tell you that? Because my father and my mother would look at me like I was crazy if I told them that I couldn't get an ID to vote. That needs to be our message to the left. It's not about being racist. It's not about anything else outside of what do you want to see in terms of voter integrity and having an ID to go vote, and don't let them call you anything else. You make sure that you hold their feet to the fire and you say, it's not about race. We're all Americans here. I just want to know my vote counted, and I can assure you all I will fight for you tirelessly in the halls of Congress to make sure that your vote counts.
Good for you. Attorney General, fixable?
So these guys have already spoken to this. Let's zoom out to the first principle, which is that the president has to obey the law. Amen. Whether we're talking about the eviction moratorium or the vaccine mandate from OSHA or the overstep of the EPA over and over and over again, or what we're seeing out of Homeland Security, and on, I could tell you about 1 million, it seems like, lawsuits that are out there. The key is to hold the president responsible, to restrain executive power, to honor Congress, our legislative authority. And you know what the Attorney General can do about it? Same thing as when anybody breaks the law. We take them to court.
Good for you. Good for you. Stephen, only about 2 minutes left. I love this idea. You may not love this idea. Big fence, wide gate. Why don't we put the fence up? Stop the illegal immigration, but increase our legal immigration. Make it easier to come to the country. I know. I'm a libertarian, sorry. But let's be honest, folks. The economy needs people. We need immigration to thrive, do we not?
Well, I got the room on my side. I haven't even started talking yet. We need to have me on your show, and we can do like a good 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, so you need more time than that.
But my very short answer is the legal
immigration number is about 1 million a year, right?
But here's my very short answer.
Yeah.
And I'll take advantage of the fact that you don't have time for a rebuttal. My view.
Wait, before you answer that, I'm pretty sure there was a guy named Donald John Trump who liked big wall with wide gate also? No?
So what I will tell you is that my view is that, and I believe this was also could be described as the policy of the Trump administration, is that when you have massive numbers of people who are out of the labor force, record numbers of people, whether they be on welfare, whether they've just given up looking for work, but they're completely detached from the labor force, we need to have what I would call a timeout or a pause, a breather, a break, so that we can get our own people fully absorbed back into the workforce and into our civic life and into our democracy.
Let's get Congressman a quick thought.
In the last 2 years, we've had 5.5 million people that we know of enter our country illegally. My dad always taught me, you cannot put the cart in front of the horse. We cannot even begin to have this conversation until we fix our porous border. As a congressman, I don't want to hear about amnesty. I don't want to hear about immunity. I don't want to hear anything until we talk about how we're going to fix what's happening at our border every single day.
Quick thought before we go. We're running it. We're down.
What he said.
What he said. All right, folks, thank you so much. Great panel, great discussion. We have some ideas. Stephen will be on the show, well, maybe next week. We'll talk. And by the way, while I have you, 10 seconds, DirecTV, they deplatforms Newsmax. Give them a call. Tell them you got to put Newsmax back on. Appreciate your time. Love CPAC. Good. And Matt Schlapp and Mercy, thank you both so much as well. Great guys. Terrific.
Thank you very much. Hey.
Well done.
Thank you.